I don't need your ancient advice. That's what my daughter-in-law hissed through a cracked door, while my grandson screamed so hard the neighbors could have called the police. If you're watching this, pour some tea and settle your nerves, because what I uncovered next turned a young mother's insult into a detonator. I'm Margaret, 68, a retired midwife who's delivered more babies than Sarah has changed diapers. And I know the difference between ordinary exhaustion and a secret that curdles the air. That night, the house reeked of more than dirty bottles. It smelled like lies. When my son Michael called me near tears because baby Ryan wouldn't stop crying, I grabbed my coat faster than a teenager grabs a phone and was at their door 2 streets over. Sarah answered looking like she'd been hit by a truck, which makes sense for someone 3 weeks postpartum. Yet the look she fired at me could have cut glass. I don't need your ancient advice on how to take care of my own baby, she snapped, shoulder wedged into the frame like I was selling insurance. I've been called many things, but ancient by a 28-year-old who hasn't slept in days. That stung worse than stepping on a Lego. Michael appeared behind her, bouncing Ryan like a basketball, gratitude written all over his tired face, and Sarah cut him off with a tight, "We're fine." In my years, I've seen new mothers be overwhelmed, weepy, prickly, even distant, but hostile to help. That's a red flag bigger than the one at a parade. I said goodnight, walked to my car, and paused. Through the thin windows, I heard a man's voice. Jake. Nice man, Michael's best friend since college, married to Lisa, who happens to be Sarah's closest friend. I peeked through the curtains like a sinner and saw Jake take Ryan from Michael. The baby went quiet so fast, it was like someone flipped a switch. Babies do not hush for strangers. They calm for parents and familiar caregivers. Sarah, who had just scorched me, was suddenly radiant with Jake in the room. Interesting. Very interesting. The next morning, Michael called, sounding like he'd been fed through a blender. She barely talks to me anymore. Mom? When Jake and Lisa come over, she lights up, but the second they leave, how often I asked? Almost every day. He said. Jake helps with the baby. Lisa brings food. Such good friends. I said, and heard the steel in my own voice. That afternoon, I called Sarah, offering the soup she loves. She declined because Jake and Lisa were coming by. Ancient as I am, I still trusted my instincts more than her politeness, so I drove by anyway. Jake's car sat smugly in the driveway. Lisa's was nowhere. 20 minutes later, Lisa arrived carrying groceries and looked surprised to see Jake there at all. Not the reaction of a woman who came with him. Sarah opened the door with panic flickering behind her eyes, fast-talked, gestured, and then Jake sauntered in like he'd been there the whole time. He kissed his wife hello. If you tell your spouse you're arriving together, you don't look surprised on the porch. 3 days later, Sarah called me and apologized in a voice that tried very hard to sound sincere. Would I watch Ryan from 2 Waruopi to 5 Waruopu? The woman who didn't need my ancient advice suddenly needed ancient babysitting. I arrived on time and found her dressed to the nines for errands, hair perfect, makeup tidy, a new dress that didn't know what spit up meant. She bolted faster than a cat with its tail on fire. I fed Ryan, changed him, rocked him, and when he slept, I buckled him into his car seat and went to run my own errands, which is grandmother code for investigation. I checked the coffee shop downtown, no Sarah. The grocery, no Sarah. The mall, no Sarah. Then I remembered the park by the lake where couples think trees keep secrets. There was her car. I pushed Ryan in his stroller like any grandma out for a stroll and saw Sarah on a bench with a man. Not just talking, kissing, full body. We shouldn't be doing this kissing. Married women do not kiss men like that, unless the man is not their husband. He wore a blue jacket, dark hair, shoulders like a linebacker. They held hands, brushed faces, kissed again, then split she toward her car. He toward the lot. I ducked behind a tree, hoping to see his face, but he slipped into his car too quickly. I caught a sliver of plate JMW. Driving home with Ryan asleep, dots arranged themselves into a picture I didn't want to see. Babies settle for people who smell like home. Ryan melted in Jake's arms. Sarah became sunshine in Jake's presence and ice around mine. Jake's car materialized whenever Michael's disappeared. Lisa's confusion at the doorstep was the easiest tell of all. 2 streets from my house, I said it out loud like a confession JMW. Jake Michael Walker. The initials matched the plate. The blue jacket matched what I'd seen him wear. The pattern matched what I'd felt in my bones the first night she called me ancient. By morning, the certainty throbbed like a bruise. I called Michael, asked him to come over after work, and told him everything. He denied it, accused me of never liking his wife, tossed postpartum depression over the truth like a blanket that doesn't cover cold feet. I've been a midwife long enough to respect that pain, but pain does not invent a blue jacket, initials on a license plate, and a baby who quiets for one man like he's oxygen. I went to bed shaking with rage I hadn't felt since the night my husband died. Rage at being told I was imagining things I had seen with my own eyes. If Michael wouldn't believe without proof, then I'd bring him proof he couldn't swallow or spit out. I called Patricia, a friend who has run a medical lab for 3 decades. Her voice was careful, legal words tiptoeing around us. But friendship made room for truth. "Bring what you have," she said. I already had one half of the puzzle in a small plastic bag from the day I babysat. The other half would require a casserole, a smile, and a hairbrush left where I knew I'd find it. That Saturday, I packed up a casserole the way some people pack a weapon. The aroma of baked noodles and cheese wafted through Michael's doorway when I arrived, smiling like the apologetic mother-in-law I was pretending to be. He looked surprised, but relieved. "Mom, you didn't have to." "Oh, I wanted to." "Sweetheart, stress makes us all say things we don't mean. Doesn't it?" I slipped past him, balancing the casserole, while my eyes scanned the living room. Sarah sat with Ryan nestled in her lap, beaming too brightly. Jake lounged on the couch, relaxed, familiar, too familiar. Lisa moved in the kitchen, sweet, unsuspecting, humming as she plated salad. My stomach turned. They all played house like nothing was rotten in the foundation. "Jake, dear, could you help me get something from the car?" I asked, with sugar dripping from my voice. He followed, oblivious. While he stepped outside, I murmured an excuse about the bathroom and slipped into the guest room. On the dresser lay Jake's hairbrush, dark strands caught in the bristles. My hands shook as I plucked a few and wrapped them in tissue, heart hammering as though the walls themselves might tattle. By the time Jake returned, I was washing my hands in the kitchen, cheerful as pie. "Everything all right?" Margaret Lisa asked. "All innocence." "Perfect. Dear. Just perfect." That afternoon, I drove straight to Patricia's lab, heart pounding the whole way. She took the samples quietly. No judgment, just a weary glance that said she knew how messy truth could be. "Results will take 3 days." "Margaret, are you sure you want to know? More sure than I've ever been?" I told her. She promised to call. 3 days stretched into 3 years. I reorganized closets, baked enough cookies for an army, and wore my floors thin pacing. When the phone finally rang, Patricia's voice was steady. "Jake is the father. 99.9% certainty." Even though I had known, the confirmation was a blow to the chest. I sat in silence, clutching the receiver. the world tilting under me. My grandson wasn't my grandson. My son's best friend had fathered his wife's child. And nobody but me knew. The question was what to do next. Tell Michael outright again. Confront Sarah Warren, Lisa. I wrestled with it until the decision landed in my chest like a stone start with Sarah. If she had any shred of decency, she'd confess. If not, I would. I called her and asked to meet for coffee, pitching it as an olive branch. She agreed, cautious. At the cafe, she sat fidgeting with her wedding ring, eyes darting. I cut to the chase. Is Ryan Michael's son? Her coffee cup rattled. Of course. Why would you? I saw you at the park. I interrupted. With Jake. Her cup slipped, shattering, hot liquid pooling across the floor. I saw you kissing. Tears welled instantly. Please, Margaret, please don't. Don't tell my son he's raising another man's child. She whispered. It was only once. One mistake. One mistake that created a life. She sobbed, admitting she'd prayed the baby would look like Michael. But Ryan's features screamed Jake. Please, Margaret, she begged. I'll do anything. Money. Favors. Just don't tell. I told her what I wanted she would confess to Michael that night. If she didn't, I would. She clutched my arm, terrified. Give me time. You've had months. Sarah. Time's up. But cowards rarely choose truth. Instead, she ran to Michael first, spinning lies. The next morning, Michael arrived at my door with Sarah in tow, his face hard, hers streaked with false tears. Mom, you need to stop. Sarah says you're spreading lies about Ryan. My stomach twisted, but I stayed calm. Ask her to take a paternity test. His jaw tightened. I'm not dignifying this insanity. Ryan is my son. End of discussion. Then you have nothing to fear, I told him softly. His voice rose, rare and raw. The fact that you'd even suggest it shows how far you've lost your mind. He stormed out, forbidding me from coming around until I could respect his wife. I stood in my doorway, shaking with rage, as the car pulled away. They thought they could gaslight me, make me doubt my own eyes. They had no idea who they were dealing with. Ancient Margaret had time, patience, and now proof. I doubled down. I needed more than DNA on paper. I needed undeniable evidence, something no one could dismiss as bias. I began watching, documenting. Jake's car at odd hours, Sarah's phone calls in hushed tones, the way she lit up like Christmas whenever Jake entered. I bought a tiny camera online, laughing grimly at myself as I unpacked it. A grandmother turned detective. Then came the breakthrough. One Tuesday morning, I saw Michael drive off at 8:30 a.m. 5 minutes later, Jake's car slid into the driveway. He had a key, of course. I called Sarah's house phone, voice sweet as sugar. Hi, dear, could I drop something off? Oh, now's not a good time. Ryan's sleeping. Liar. Jake's car sat smugly in her driveway. Later that evening, Michael told me Jake had come by to help with Ryan, praising his best friend like a saint. My heart broke hearing my son blame himself for not soothing the baby. Of course, Ryan calmed for Jake, his real father. Michael, you're a wonderful father, I told him. Even as I swallowed the lie, my conviction sharpened. When the truth came, it would leave no room for denial. The envelope with the DNA results burned in my purse like a live grenade. I gave Sarah one final chance, showing up at her door unannounced. She looked wary, defensive. Are you going to tell Michael? I asked. Her face hardened. There's nothing to tell. I showed her the blurry photo I'd snapped at the park. Her composure cracked. Then I laid the envelope on the table between us. Jake is Ryan's father. 99.9% certainty. She stared at it like it would explode. You have until tomorrow night, I told her, to confess. If you don't, I will. She begged, pale as chalk. No more pleases, Sarah. No more lies. This ends now. Sunday arrived like Judgment Day. I spent the afternoon in my kitchen preparing a feast roast beef, mashed potatoes, green beans, apple pie. If I was about to torch what was left of my son's life, at least everyone would have a decent last meal together. At 6:00 p.m. sharp, the doorbell rang. Michael and Sarah came in with baby Ryan. Sarah's smile stretched too tight. Minutes later, Jake and Lisa arrived, cheerful, bringing flowers and a bottle of wine. Just one big happy family, walking straight into the fire. We made small talk over appetizers. Lisa cooed over Ryan, doting on him as if he were her nephew, never knowing he was her husband's son. Jake played with him so naturally that even Michael joked, "You're better at this than I am." I bit my tongue so hard, I tasted blood. Sarah barely touched her plate, eyes darting at me every few minutes. I could feel her dread pulsing across the table. During dinner, conversation rolled along Michael telling stories from work, Lisa talking about her latest baking experiments, Jake chiming in with his usual charm. On the surface, everything looked perfect. But Sarah's fork clattered against her plate when I mentioned how stress can make people do things they never thought they'd do. The room went silent for a beat before Lisa gently asked if Sarah was feeling all right. Just tired, Sarah muttered, pale as a ghost. After pie and coffee, I stood. My heart hammered, but my voice was steady. I have something I need to share with all of you. Sarah's grip on her cup was so tight I thought it might shatter. Over the past few weeks, I've uncovered something that affects us all. Mom, Michael warned, careful, wary. I looked at Sarah. Last chance. Would you like to tell them? She shook her head, tears spilling down her face. I can't, she whispered. Then I will. I reached into my purse and placed the envelope on the table. 3 weeks ago, I had a paternity test done on Ryan. The words detonated like a bomb. Michael shot to his feet, shouting. Jake sputtered. Lisa blinked in confusion. The test shows Jake is Ryan's biological father. For one long second, silence. Then chaos. Michael demanded answers. Jake stammered denials. Lisa's face twisted, disbelief warring with fury. Sarah sobbed, confessing between gasps. It happened during her pregnancy, she said, when Michael was working late. She was lonely. Jake was always there. It was a mistake that spiraled into a nightmare. Lisa turned on her husband, her voice like ice. How many times Jake mumbled, "A few." Lisa's face hardened. "A few times, and you made a baby." She glared at Sarah. "And you letting Michael raise him? Letting me help you? You've destroyed everything. Get out." Sarah stammered, confused, pleading, but Lisa was done. She grabbed her purse and coat, told Jake not to follow, not to call, not to come home. The slam of the door echoed like a gunshot. In the hollow silence, Michael slumped into his chair, staring at the baby he adored. "He's not mine," he said quietly. Sarah reached for him, desperate. "Don't touch me," he whispered, eyes blank. Everything was a lie. She turned on me, rage cutting through her tears. "Look what you've done. You destroyed us. I didn't destroy anything," I told her. "You did the moment you betrayed my son." Michael stood abruptly, mechanical, as if sleepwalking. I need to leave. He walked past Sarah without a glance, past Ryan, who slumbered in his carrier, past me, at the door. He paused, voice low. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for telling me the truth. And then he was gone. Sarah sat sobbing at my table, the baby snuffling in his sleep, while the ruins of our family smoldered around us. In that moment, I felt no triumph, only the crushing weight of justice served. The house was silent except for Sarah's broken cries. But I knew nothing would ever be the same again. The aftermath unraveled quickly. Sarah moved back with her parents the very next day. Michael filed for divorce within a week. Jake tried to repair things with Lisa, but she packed her life in boxes, filed her own papers, and fled across the country to her sister. The tight circle of friendships and marriages shattered like glass on tile. My son stayed with me for 2 weeks, hollow-eyed, barely speaking, grieving not only his marriage, but the child he thought was his. At night, I heard him crying through the walls, and my heart broke all over again. He couldn't accept Sarah's offer to stay in Ryan's life. It was too painful. The betrayal cut too deep. In time, Michael began to heal. Therapy helped. So did distance. Lisa wrote me a letter from California, thanking me for telling the truth, even though it wrecked her world. She said she was starting over, had even met someone who truly wanted children with her. Jake tried reaching out, but Michael never responded. Sarah called once, months later, to say Ryan was doing well and that she understood why I did what I did. I told her flatly, I'm not sorry. That was the last time we spoke. Years passed. Michael met a kind woman named Jennifer, a teacher with no ties to the past, and slowly laughter returned to his voice. One evening, as I watched them on my porch, I realized he was going to be all right. Changed, yes, but stronger. When Jennifer asked me if I regretted blowing everything up, I thought about it. About Lisa starting fresh, about Michael's healing, about Ryan growing up in truth instead of lies. No, I told her, truth is bitter medicine, but it heals. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set fire to the lies, even when it hurts, especially then. If Sarah had listened to my so-called ancient advice, none of this would have happened. Sometimes experience really does know best. And sometimes the truth needs a stubborn, relentless messenger to drag it into the light. Don't ever underestimate Ancient Margaret. She has time, patience, and a very long memory. If this story gripped you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my shoes? I'd love to hear your thoughts.